In the hills above one of the largest cities on Earth, a wild mountain lion looked out over a sea of light. 10 million people lived below him. Freeways roared through the dark like rivers of fire. And somewhere out there, across all that concrete and noise, was everything he was looking for and would never find. His name was P-22, and for 10 years he lived a life no mountain lion was ever meant to live. Alone, in the heart of Los Angeles, beneath the glow of the Hollywood sign. He was the most famous wildcat in the world, and he was the loneliest. This is his story. He was born around 2010 in the Santa Monica Mountains west of Los Angeles. It was wild country, but it was a trap, and he didn't know it yet. These mountains were an island. On every side, they were cut off from the rest of the wild by something no animal could reason with: the freeway. For a young male mountain lion, this was a death sentence waiting to happen. Because a male cougar needs space, enormous space. A single adult male claims a territory of 150 square miles or more, and he defends it to the death against other males. In these crowded mountains, there was no room. The older, stronger males held the ground, and a young cat looking for a home of his own had only two choices: challenge them and die, or leave. P-22 chose to leave, and that decision would make him a legend. To find a territory of his own, P-22 did something almost no mountain lion had ever survived. He walked toward the city. From the Santa Monica Mountains, he traveled east, through the wealthy hills of Bel Air, past the backyards of one of the most densely populated regions in America. And then he came to the first great barrier, the 405 freeway. 10 lanes of speeding traffic, one of the busiest highways in the entire world. A wall of steel and noise that has killed countless mountain lions who tried to cross it. Somehow, in the dark we can only imagine how, P-22 made it across. But he wasn't done. Ahead of him lay a second freeway, the 101, near the Hollywood Bowl. Another river of racing metal. Another gamble with his life. And once again, against odds so long they defy belief, the young cat slipped across in the darkness and survived. He became the first mountain lion ever known to cross both freeways and live. He had traveled through the heart of a megacity and come out the other side. What he found on the other side must have seemed like paradise. Griffith Park, 9 square miles of rugged, chaparral-covered wilderness in the middle of Los Angeles. It was full of mule deer, easy hunting. It had hiding places, ridge lines, quiet canyons, and best of all, it had no other mountain lions, no rivals. For the first time in his life, P-22 had a kingdom entirely his own. There was just one problem. It was far, far too small. A male mountain lion needs around 150 square miles. P-22's entire world was 9. It was smaller than his true range by a factor of 30. He was a king, but his kingdom was a prison, walled in on every side by freeways he had been lucky to cross even once. He would spend the next 10 years in this tiny island of wilderness, and he would spend all of them alone. For a while, no one even knew he was there. A mountain lion hiding in plain sight in the busiest city park in Los Angeles? It sounded like a myth. Biologists dismissed the rumors until in 2012, a camera trap finally caught him. A real wild cougar living beneath the Hollywood Hills. The city was stunned. And then, a photograph changed everything. A National Geographic photographer spent 15 months placing cameras in Griffith Park, losing them to thieves, waiting for one perfect shot. And at last, he captured it. P-22, walking through the night, with the glowing Hollywood sign rising behind him. That single image traveled around the world. A wild predator, framed by the most famous symbol of human fame on Earth. It was impossible. It was beautiful. And it made P-22 an overnight celebrity. They called him the Hollywood Cat, the Brad Pitt of mountain lions. A wild king who lived rent-free beneath the Hollywood sign. But behind the fame was a truth that broke the hearts of those who understood it. P-22 was utterly alone. He had crossed 2 deadly freeways to find his kingdom, and those same freeways now sealed him inside it. To find a mate, he would have to make the impossible crossing again, in reverse. He never did. For 10 years, in the middle of a city of millions, the most famous mountain lion in the world lived without a single member of his own kind. He never found a mate. He never had cubs. He called out into a wilderness where no other cougar would ever answer. He had everything a mountain lion could want: food, shelter, a kingdom of his own. Everything except the one thing that mattered most: another of his kind. Sometimes he was seen resting in backyards, or crossing quiet streets at night, or lounging beneath the crawl space of a home. A wild ghost moving through the human world, close enough to touch it, forever apart from it. And yet, in his loneliness, P-22 became something greater than himself. People fell in love with him, not just as a curiosity, but as a symbol. He stood for every wild animal trapped by the roads and cities we have built across their ancient paths. He became the face of a movement, because his story asked a painful question. What happens to the wild when we carve it into pieces too small to survive in? His fame gave that question a voice. Los Angeles held festivals in his honor. School children wrote him letters. Artists painted him across the city. One little boy from a struggling family wrote to P-22, "I'm so sorry you are sad and lonely and scared. I have been there before." A wild cougar had become a mirror. But a symbol is still a living creature, and the years alone took their toll. P-22 faced nearly every danger a mountain lion in the city could face. He survived rat poison, which left him weak and sick with mange before he slowly recovered. He lived with the constant roar of traffic, the shrinking of his world. He grew old, remarkably old for a wild cougar. By his final years, he was around 12, one of the oldest mountain lions ever studied in the region. But age and hardship and a lifetime of surviving against the odds had worn him down. He grew thin, weakened. The great hunter who had crossed 2 freeways. And then, in his final days, the thing that had always threatened him came for him one last time. A car. In December of 2022, P-22 was struck by a vehicle. The injuries, combined with the illnesses of old age, were more than his worn body could bear. The people who had watched over him for a decade made the hardest decision of all. To spare him further suffering, P-22 was gently put to rest.
He was around 12 years old. The most famous wildcat in the world was gone. And the city he had lived above, the city of 10 million strangers who had somehow come to love a lonely cougar, grieved as if it had lost one of its own. Newspapers around the world published his eulogy.
There were memorials and murals and mourning. The local Native American tribes asked that he be laid to rest near the park that had been his kingdom, with a ceremony to honor his spirit. The lonely king had come home. But P22's story does not end in grief, because in his 10 lonely years, he had shown the world something it could not unsee. He had put a face to the thousands of wild animals trapped and dying on our roads. And the city he had captured decided to answer him. They built a bridge. Over 10 lanes of the same kind of freeway that had imprisoned him for life, the largest wildlife crossing in the world began to rise. A green bridge of trees and earth, so that the mountain lions who came after him would never have to be as alone as he was, so that they could cross in safety, so that they could find each other. P22 never got to use it. He never got the mate, the family, the freedom he searched for his whole life. But because he existed, because one lonely cat crossed 2 freeways and captured a city's heart, every wild creature that comes after him will have a path he never had. He was the loneliest king in the world. And in the end, his loneliness built a bridge to save his kind. Remember him when you see the Hollywood sign. A wild ghost once walked beneath it, alone, unbroken, and unforgettable. If his story moved you, there's more of the wild waiting for you, every week right here. Subscribe and listen for the call of the wild.